Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Popcorn Line Down. I'm Eddie.
And I'm Tammy.
And thank you for joining us this week as we will be discussing Zack Snyder's Justice League, which proves that sometimes you do get a second chance to get it right. Or maybe more right? We'll see. Anyway, it tells the same story as the 2017 version. So let's just recap that. After Superman's death, Bruce Wayne is determined to not have let that death been in vain, and he goes about trying to create a team of superheroes to save the world from Steppenwolf's alien invasion. And like I said, they tell the same story, they just tell them so differently. Tammy, I'm interested to see what you're gonna have to, what you thought about this. I think we're going to agree to disagree. Okay, go ahead.
It was good, but I wonder what it would have been if it was down to the 2.5 hours that they actually were going to give him. They allowed him to stretch this out for 4 hours, which means that he was able to pull more story and to really flesh out all the characters like the Flash, as well as Victor, Cyborg, which I love the fact that he was able to flesh out those characters more. But if he had to bring it down to the 2 hours and 30 minutes or even 3 hours, if he went that far, would he still have been able to flesh out those characters? So would that still have been the image or the story that he would have been able to tell? And that's what was kind of in my head. Like, it's great with the amount of time that he was given, but if he had less time, would he been able to produce, the amazing storyline for the secondary characters as he did with this, with his part? So
I want to say I think so, because from my understanding, when Joss Wheaton took over, Joss Wheaton had pretty much the framework. He only had to reshoot certain things, and he rewrote a lot of the dialogue. And that's what, like, when he took over, the movie was pretty much done. There were certain things that they had to come back and do and reshoot. There are certain things that he wanted to reshoot. And Henry Cavill was shooting Mission Impossible at the time, so he had a mustache, so they cropped that out. And I think that was one of the things that upset Zack Snyder when he saw the 2017 version, is like, they've bastardized my movie. It wasn't necessarily that the time had been cut down to the 2.5 hours. It was that, what the hell did you do to my movie? And we all agree the 2017 version of the Justice League was horrible. Like, even without seeing this, I think most of us thought, what the fuck was that? And I think we were kind because we were superhero fans or fans of the genre, but it was pretty bad. And so just going back and thinking about all the differences, two completely different movies. And when I was looking at some things, because did you go back and watch the 2017 one?
No.
I wanted to, but I just could not bring myself to do that. I'm like, I have better things to do with 2.5 hours of my life to sit through that movie again. And I must say, I owned the movie, and I was like, why did I buy it? Just so I could say I had it in the collection? I don't know. But I think when we first talked about it, I said that I finally understood, because when they first announced that they were going to do a Flash movie after the Justice League, you were like, why? You didn't see it. I didn't understand. And I was like, and once I saw this, I'm like, oh, okay, I understand. I'm actually looking forward to the Flash movie now. I get it. And the same thing, and people didn't understand. I think a lot of people were like, well, why is Ray Fisher even saying things? Cyborg wasn't even a big part of the movie. And that's because all of his crap was cut out. And so, and it did give it more it made it, I don't know, it was just a better story to me. Forgetting the time, because it does take a moment, it does take a little bit to build up into it. I think they could have cut out some. It didn't have to be 4+ hours. That it was a little too long. I agree with you on that. I think for me, it really didn't get. I didn't really get into it. So maybe like hour number after the first hour, hour and a half. That's when it really got more interesting to me. But what did you think about the differences between the two?
What were the differences?
Wonder Woman was more Wonder Woman. She wasn't this sex pot. Her scene in the beginning wasn't about her just like you actually got to see her be a hero. It wasn't just her showing up and shaking her butt. The Amazons, when they went to her island, the first one, they had them like cowering in fear of this big bad alien who had come to take over. But Zack Snyder spends a whole 20 minutes showing you how they fight back, which you could have cut that down a little bit, but showing them to be the badass Amazon women that they were. Obviously, the Flash and Cyborg characters are fleshed out a little bit. It's a little bit more violent, obviously. It doesn't have. And I think when we were talking about it, I said, the Avengers and the Avengers kind of have that snarkiness that works for them, and the Justice League, they really aren't known for their snark. Like, there's sarcasm there, but not a whole bunch of just snark. So that snarkiness wasn't quite there, which I appreciate, because it didn't land well. But yeah, and there's some other things, but yeah.
I mean, like I said, I understand as he expanded, because of the time that he was given, he really could expand the stories of the different characters, especially secondary characters, which I appreciated, because I do agree that it showed me that I would be interested in a Cyborg movie to see it, because one thing that I didn't understand with the first one was I thought that Cyborg, even knowing in my head, because I do kind of know a little bit about the character, but I thought like his intelligence really came from him having access to, basically all the information in the world. And then with this one, you really get to see like he was a genius beforehand. Granted, his parents were geniuses, but he was a genius beforehand, and then becoming Cyborg just enhanced the knowledge that he had. And then the same thing with the Flash. I could finally see Ezra Miller as the Flash. So that was very, very interesting. And I mean, of course, like I like the expansion. I like the expansion of the different worlds. The fact that he added some context to the different scenes, because it did feel a little disjointed with Josh Whedon's version of it. It seemed a little disjointed, like scenes were kind of thrown in there rather than being able to connect the dots between them. So I did like that, but like I said, 4 hours, break it down. Would you have still been able to fully expand on the stories as much as you did? Because those 20 minutes of the Amazons fighting back, amazing. But would that have been on the cutting board? Like, would have been that been on the cutting floor? Like, if, he had to bring it down to 2.5 hours.
Well, see, and I think, okay, so I have two questions. First, I'll address that. I think part of it was that because they were talking about how much, and I'll send you one of the articles, especially for you being the feminist that you are, and that's not a knock on that at all. But you would love it. It's called the 17 cringeworthy moments towards women in 2017's Justice League that are changed in Zack Snyder's cut. And I think because he did sexualize the women so much and made them seem like that they were cowering in fear to the, instead of being these badass warriors, they all of a sudden become these scaredy cat women who just need someone to come save them. I think he may have overdone it a little bit trying to prove that, because the scene was still in there. All you had to do is add back the original dialogue and show a little bit more of the fighting. You didn't need the whole as badass as it was. You could have cut it down and still showed them being powerful and with the original dialogue, if that makes sense. So I think in some places you still could have told the story, but still edited down a little bit. Probably maybe the 3 hour mark might have been better, because the original was like 2.5. So I could see you adding that extra 30 minutes of footage. Or do you think, do you remember at one point, one of the rumors was that it was going to be serialized, kind of like they did, like Marvel's done with Falcon and the Snowman. I mean, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I know. That was an old movie. The Falcon and the Snowman.
Shit. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, do you mean?
Yes, I got it right. I noticed when I said that. The Falcon and the Snowman was an old 80s spy movie.
Look. I tell you, when we do the episode on Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I am bringing this back up. And I'll be like, oh, you mean the Snowman?
Yes, the Snowman. That's our code name for it, since they're spies. Anyway, as I was saying, do you think that they should have stuck with that, and they should have serialized it and maybe done it in parts?
Yes. I mean, they did it in parts. He just put all the parts together. I think it would have been amazing to be released in parts.
Like a serial form?
Yeah. Because I felt like that's what I was watching. I felt like I was just binge watching the whole thing at once. I felt like I was binge watching the whole thing at once, because they had 7 parts with the epilogue at the end. So separating it and just posting it, 2 every week or however that would have went, would have been, I think would have been great. But another thing, it would have been great for it, but only if they were actually going to follow the universe that was created with Zack Snyder's version, and they're not. That is one thing I absolutely hate about the DC universe. There's no cohesion. There's no continuation of storylines. It's like every single character, when they do a new movie, it's like they reinvent the story that was already put forth. So they're not even going to be following what he did, even though it was very well received by the public. Yeah. Very well received. And I feel that they should switch it up and go back to Zack Snyder's world and phase, whatever phase they're in, that he created, rather than doing something else with it and going back to the Joss Whedon one. But they're not. And I don't understand how the studios don't understand. Like, you're selling these movies off of the history and the fact of saying that people are just attached to superhero movies, and so it's a big production. But every time people come out of the theater, it's negative reactions to what you're putting out. So you would think you would change that so you can have more positive, so you can gain more fans, rather than just kind of placating the fans that are going to come out no matter what, kind of thing,
Yeah, and I'm going to probably say something that's going to be unpopular here, but for me, growing up, and I really didn't know a lot about the different universes. I just knew who I liked, and so for me, besides, with the exception of Spider-Man, maybe it was always that I always knew more about the DC universe, the Justice League, Batman, Superman, all of that. So what works for Marvel is their continuation of stories, even with their series, WandaVision and the Falcon and the Snowman, aka Winter Soldier. And that was one of the things about when they had their series on Netflix. That was one of the things that people were like, well, why won't you include those into the MCU? And I don't know if it was a deal with Netflix. I don't know why that didn't happen, but they probably would have been more popular if they had. And those were great serials. They were great. But and some of the lesser known characters. But here, I agree with you. It kind of makes you go back to what if, or what could have been if they had just been a little bit more patient if they would have waited, especially since the movie was mostly done, if they had to just let Snyder work through his family issues at the time and, postponed it a little bit so he could tell the story and where they would go. Because now people are saying what you just said. So I know when you pick up, are you going to continue with the story? Like, okay, we want a Justice League 2 if it picks up where this version of the Justice League fell off. And it's like, you can't forget that the only reason why you allowed Snyder to come out and tell his story or to complete his vision is because the fans demanded it. Like, so give the people what they want. You already did, and it's been great. And dare I say, even if the movie had been released in the theaters at 4 hours, you still would have made a buttload of money on it because that's just how much people wanted to see it, So I agree. The lack of cohesion between the stories, and especially considering that, before the Iron Man movie, to me, I was always more of a fan, I guess, of the DC Universe because those were the characters, with the exception of Spider-Man and a few others from Marvel, that I was more familiar with. And so I've just been sorely disappointed with their storytelling outside of Wonder Woman and even Aquaman. We talked about it, but I think Wonder Woman has been the one that they've done, that series has been the one that they've done the best job with in telling a cohesive story and allowing her to fit into the other parts that they tell in the DC universe.
But even with that, like, we didn't, like, I didn't really mention it when we did our episode on Wonder Woman 84, but it's that there's going to be no cohesion between that either, because now when you bring it back to present day, they don't, it's kind of like the people at the DC studios or whatever it's called that makes the DC movies didn't sit down and break down the different phases of these movies. They're just looking at it as in, well, it worked for Marvel, so we're just going to kind of say we're in phase 1 or phase 2 or phase 3. But they're not breaking it down per character, when they want to bring in these new characters, when they want to do the new movie. So I'm like, when the Flash comes about, are you going to have a whole different story than the one that was presented in Justice League? Yes, they're probably going to have a different story. And the same thing with Wonder Woman from 1984. But because you just kind of did that movie like it was kind of like a standalone movie, in addition to that, in present day, there's no real mention of what she's done before because y'all didn't plan out the Wonder Woman movies. You haven't planned any of these movies out to really have cohesion, because they still have the scene where Aquaman talks about how his mom left him, or the fact that Mara's parents died and so she was raised by Aquaman's mom, and and I'm just like, that didn't happen in the Aquaman movie. Like, her daddy's alive. So we changed it up because we didn't actually take that into consideration when we made the Aquaman movie. Like, there's no cohesion. Like, even the more successful of Wonder Woman and Aquaman, which was actually really, really successful as well. I'm like, y'all need to sit down and actually plan these movies out and plan these phases that you gonna have out, please.
Well, see, I think, what was it? I think that, like you said, they kind of, one thing that I think where they went wrong is they've been trying to copy the success of the Dark Knight series, but they've been doing it completely wrong. And the Dark Knight series is just a standalone thing. And when you didn't get Christian Bale and Christopher Nolan to come back and do the new Batman movies and all of that, I get that, but I'm with you. You should have had a plan. It's not that Marvel has phases, it's that they have a plan, and they even have a way to tie in their standalone movies to the universe as a whole. It's not like, so I get that. And I think going forward, they should, especially if they do another Justice League, they should continue on with this story And like I said, it's amazing because the story is the same. It's just the storytelling is completely different. It's not like there's a whole new plot. Although it seems like there's a whole new plot just from what Joss Wheaton did to what Zack Snyder did. So seeing the difference between the two, yeah, I would have been pissed off and felt like he bastardized my movie too. Like it's amazing what a few different scenes and rewrite and sticking with the original script and giving some of the characters, like, because Cyborg and Flash, they're the heart of this film, and it's like you cut them to such secondary roles in the beginning. It's like no one understood, why the hell do you want to make a Flash movie? Like, this wasn't that good. And it kind of gives you an idea. The Easter egg from when the Flash saw, or he saved Iris West in this movie. Like, are you? And I'm with you. Are they going to pick up and continue to try to tell that story, or what's the Flash story going to be? They're just still rounding out some of the characters and casting, so I'm not really sure. But I would be interested to see what they do with the Flash movie and the Justice League. So, do you think that? Oh, I know what else. I did like the Batfleck in this one.
We're gonna agree to disagree on that. I like the character because I like the fact that Batman doesn't play a game on the fact of like why he does what he does. He's not a goody two shoes character, and I love the fact that like my favorite line, even with this one, my favorite line from the original, my favorite line from this one is when Barry Allen asked him, "What's your superpowers?" And he was like, "I'm rich."
I'm rich.
It was just like, exactly, like he knows what role he plays, and like he acknowledges the fact that he is human and he's going to get hurt. So I definitely like that. But to be honest, I can see somebody else playing the role. Now, can I see Robert Pattinson playing the role, who's taking it over? I don't know. And we'll see, because he's playing a younger version of when he first becomes Batman. So we shall see. But I can see somebody else playing the role. Like, it's not... Batman is... Because when you compare characters and people are like, oh, don't compare it, but you have to. They're created basically at the same time. But like when you look at Iron Man and you look at Batman, like Iron Man is Robert Downey Jr. That is the reason why they fought so hard and they gave him so much money to keep him in that role. That is him. Like nobody else can play Iron Man but Robert Downey Jr. Except for when they bring in the female version. But for Batman, like, nah, you could bring somebody else in. It's cool.
Oh no, I mean, I get it. I do, but I finally understood. I guess, let me rephrase. I finally liked and understood. Like I've always said, Ben Affleck was a great Bruce Wayne, a horrible Batman. I actually liked him as Batman in this one because, again, when we were introduced to him as Batman, it was a horrible movie. The Batman versus Superman. We won't talk about that because it gives me a headache. But so in this version, I liked him as Batman, and it actually made me want to see how he would have done if he would have had a standalone. Like he was supposed to do a standalone Batman movie. But the response was so horrible to that after the 2017 Justice League that it was dropped. And, say what you want about Ben Affleck. I think he's a great writer and a great director. So I would have been interested to see the story he would have told with Batman. Now that I've seen this, I'm like, okay, I think I would have been a little bit more receptive to it. So if they were going to do that, but yeah, we're gonna have to leave emo Batman. I'm gonna.
You
I'm
don't
gonna reserve
know if
my
he's
judgment.
gonna be emo.
I'm gonna reserve. I love Robert Pattinson. I do. Okay, Team Edward forever.
Team Jacob.
I love Robert. Go figure. Who would have known we would be on opposite sides of that?
Wait. Okay, wait. No, I'm sorry. Pause on what you're about to say. Try to remember it. Write it down. All right. So,
Okay.
are you Team Edward from the movie or Team Edward from the books?
Both.
Oh, that's horrible. Okay, go ahead.
I do realize the problems with that and the character flaws, and I think that may just be due to the writing. And I'm a romantic, so we're gonna have a Twilight discussion. We can add that to the books, but yeah, I get I get how it's a little problematic, especially coming from the books. I understand that, but I was gonna say I'm reserving judgment on emo Batman, who looks like a ripoff of The Crow, from what I've seen, until we see the whole movie next year in 2022, because it's been pushed back again. All right, they've wrapped shooting on it, but we won't actually get to see it until 2022. So I am going to reserve my judgment on emo Batman. Can I call him emo man?
No, you cannot call him emo man. We don't know, because then I can call him crackhead Batman. Because he looked like he just shot up right before he went on to do his scenes. Like, ooh, he looking like Trailer Park Batman for a minute. Like he poor. Like I'd be like, is Batman rich in this movie, or is he making him poor? He looked like he ain't got no money.
Yeah. One of my favorite lines from the movie, speaking of Batman, is when he introduces everyone to Alfred. He goes, "I work for him." Like he's my boss.
Okay, so can I say, are they changing Alfred in the new movie? I love. Oh my gosh, I want to say Jeremy Irons, right? I always get his name confused with his son's name. Okay, so I love Jeremy Irons, and I'm just like, because I've loved him ever since he was in, what's the Leonardo DiCaprio movie? Oh.
You're gonna have to be a little bit more specific.
The Man in the Iron Mask.
Oh yes, one of my favorite lesser known. We're gonna have to do a Leonardo DiCaprio show.
But I love Jeremy Irons since that movie. Like, just it's one of my favorite movies ever. But and so when I saw like he was gonna be Alfred, I was just like, oh, what type is he going to be? And I loved him as that character. Like, I hope that he does come back and he's going to be Alfred in the new one. I mean, I don't know, seeing as how they're gonna make. It's going to be from Batman's younger years, when he was Bruce Wayne turning into Batman. But I loved his character. Like, I thought he was awesome. Like when Diana was making the tea, and he was like, "No, I can do that for you." And then she was like, "No, I can do it." But then he kept directing her on what to do next. I was like, he's such a British like dude, but
Yes, and. Side aside, if anybody who wants to know the Alfred origin story, you must watch Pennyworth on Epix. It's so good, and it explains so much about why he's so understanding about Batman, Bruce Wayne turning into Batman. Alfred has a history. Alfred is a bit of a badass. Spoiler alert. Again, that is Pennyworth on Epix. Yes, that's my shout out. So, Tammy, I suggest watch Pennyworth on Epix.
No, I watched 3 episodes. It was boring.
Definitely not.
For you, it wasn't boring. For me, it was.
Definitely not. We're going, as you would say, we're going to agree to disagree. Yes. But we both agree that it probably would have been better if they had serialized it. And I think they still could have told the story and maybe just made it to 4 episodes. I don't know. Even though it was 7, including the epilogue, I don't think you had 7 hours, although you still don't know what was left on the cutting room floor. I'm sure there was a lot.
No, they could have done it at 20 minutes, 25. Like, I think it would have been great at just doing
30 minutes.
No, just doing the parts.
30-minute episode.
Because some of the parts were less than 30 minutes. Just putting it in parts and releasing the parts, because every part was significant at the end. Like how they ended each part of the movie and then started the new one. Like, it was significant. So I think that no matter if a part had been like 20 minutes and the next one was 35 minutes, I think that would have been fine on just releasing it in the parts that were created.
So what did you think of Jared Leto's return as the Joker?
Insignificant.
Really?
Yeah. know. I'm guessing you found it to be significant.
I'm going to say I found it to be a little anticlimactic.
That sounds better.
But I did like seeing him play a different version of the Joker, because again, with the Suicide Squad, that's not necessarily the Joker that he wanted to play. Of course, you had to do something different than Heath Ledger's Joker, but he wanted to play him a little bit differently. So once I watched the Suicide Squad again, yes, I've watched it more than once. I don't know what I was thinking. It was just as bad the second time, but I gained a little bit more. I gained a little bit more respect for the character. Now, Joaquin Phoenix did a great job as the Joker in that movie, but I still would have. I don't know. I guess I'm one of those people who just did not think that Jared Leto got a fair shot as the Joker, especially considering once you read up on all the behind the scenes and stuff like that. So, but I must say that his turn about as the Joker in this time, to me, is a little bit anticlimactic. I thought he would have a bigger role, and I get that this was all about Steppenwolf, but that the prologue, like, is that when Superman goes bad or dark, or is that a different universe Superman? Like, I forgot what they call the dark Superman. And is it like, and that's the thing, is it something that's left over from him, where he goes about destroying the world and all of that kind of stuff? So, like I said, and then it turns out to be just a dream or whatever. Like, was it a dream or a vision or so? But yeah, I thought it was a little anticlimactic. Although I still think he deserves a fair shot at playing the Joker. Although Joaquin Phoenix is great.
I didn't watch Joker with Joaquin Phoenix in it. He is an actor who I can acknowledge is phenomenal at his craft, and yet I do not ever like his movies. So I've never watched Joker, but I will say that Jared Leto is also phenomenal at his craft. I am actually in the minority on liking Suicide Squad, partly because I liked all the actors that were in it. And I do think he didn't get a fair shake on that. And I would hope that he would come back into the DC Universe to play Joker again. Because I think he did a phenomenal job as Joker. He made it his own compared to trying to do it the way Joaquin Phoenix did it, or the way that Heath Ledger did it. Like, I could call Jared Leto the Joker rather than being like, but like he wasn't like Joaquin Phoenix, so he's not like Heath Ledger. No, like, he made it his own with what he was given, and I would love to see him again playing that character.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the problem with Batman, because you said something that just kind of made me go back to that. Each person who's played the Joker in the modern movies that I've seen, they've made it their own. Jack Nicholson, if you've seen the 90s The Batman, he was amazing as the Joker. And, it's Jack Nicholson, but he did great as the Joker. Heath Ledger came along and did a phenomenal job as the Joker, and that made it his own. Jared Leto did a great job as the Joker, and he made it his own. Like I said, he was one of the better parts of the Suicide Squad movie to me. And I really would love to see what he could do as a standalone. Again, he was supposed to get his own standalone Joker movie, and just because Suicide Squad bombed so horribly and everything, and people panned that performance, it was just like, no. And Joaquin Phoenix, he comes along and he does his own thing as the Joker too. So each one is different and great in their own right. But I'm with you. I would love to see Jared Leto get an opportunity at playing the Joker on his own terms. I think that would be amazing. And again, if they bring the Joker back in the movie, is it going to have anything to do with, okay, is Joaquin Phoenix going to be the Joker, Are they just going to act like the Joker movie never existed? Like, I'm going to need DC to get some cohesion between some of these movies.
I'm gonna need them to actually lock
movies.
down these actors, okay? Like, lock them down. Like, every movie is changing because Superman's changing again. Henry Cavill is not coming back, so Superman is going to be different. Once again, they're casting someone else. The only actors who are staying exactly where they are is Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and The Flash, and only because he ain't got his movie yet, and he's still waiting for it to come out.
Yeah, so I mean, so I guess that might tell you a little bit about, there's some truth to what Ray Fisher was saying about the chaos behind the scenes at Warner Brothers and DC. Like, you know, they need to get their shit together. All right, so I guess that, having said that, is there anything else you want to add about the Justice League?
No, ma'am.
What would you... Okay, do you think there should be a sequel?
Of what?
The Justice League.
It's the DC Universe. Like, of course there's going to be a sequel. I feel like that's the wrong question to ask, seeing as how this movie is it's the DC Universe. So we know that sequels are coming up. And we already talked about that. We feel this universe that was created with Zack Snyder is better than the universe created with Joss Whedon. So I guess, they should follow Zack Snyder's universe that he created rather than Whedon's universe, if that is the question.
Yeah, okay, I guess so. Okay. Oh, no. Okay, so here's the question. Should Zack Snyder be in charge of the sequel, I guess?
Move on.
Well, why not? Okay. So if you move on from Zack Snyder, do you think they'll still be able to tell his story?
What story? They're not telling his story. His story's out. It's done.
Well, you said, so you think a sequel should follow this story, right?
I feel the universe should follow the phase that they're in. I don't even know what phase they're in at DC. Should follow the story because it was fleshed out with what Zack Snyder presented, but they only did it for the fans. So that DC has already announced that they're not following the universe that's created under Zack Snyder. They're continuing with the universe that was created under Joss Whedon's Justice League. So, I mean, you know, it is what it is.
So I'm going to have to go back and watch that to refresh my memory? Is that what you're saying?
To refresh your memory of what? It was just Steppenwolf. They just fleshed out the storyline. At the end of the day, it's still Steppenwolf, and the next one is going to be Lex Luthor and... Dang it, I forgot the dude's name. Deathstroke.
Oh, I love
so
Deathstroke.
It's gonna be it's gonna follow that continuation of, and it was in Zack Snyder's movie as well. You know, Lex Luthor still escaping from prison, and Deathstroke coming on to wanting to take out Batman, and finding out that he's Bruce Wayne. So that still is going to be a continuation. So that's why I said, like, I don't feel the storyline was so different that it's like they're deviating completely from what Zack Snyder was going to do.
No. Yeah, and the storyline isn't different. Don't get me wrong. It's still, they've told the same story. It's just the way they told the story was so different.
So the same thing is, I think going where you find out more about Darkseid, you find out because in Joss Whedon's version, you're thinking that Steppenwolf is like the be all and end all, like he's all powerful on his own. But then you find out in Zack Snyder's movie that he's not. He's like second tier, maybe even third tier on the power scale. And the real person to watch out for is Darkseid, who's supposed to be coming back. So, and Darkseid is basically Thanos of the DC universe. So, you know, hoping that they bring Darkseid back and actually flesh that character out. But I just don't think, like, it was, like you said, it wasn't different enough for me to feel like, oh, do you want a sequel? A sequel of what? They're going to do a sequel. It's just maybe they're not going to pertain to the fleshed out parts of Zack Snyder's version.
Oh, so well, I would like to see Martian the Manhunter. I was happy to see him in the Zack Snyder version, and I would love to see that continuation
I'm excited about the
in a
Green
sequel.
Lantern Federation. I've been waiting for that
Oh,
for
I am
forever,
too.
and I'm gonna need them to bring this on. Come on, let's go. I'm ready for it.
Yeah. Although I do need to go check out Ryan Reynolds live tweeting the first time he watched Green Lantern. I bet that was hilarious. And Leslie Jones also live tweeted when she watched this movie. You can check that out. The excerpts of that are on the website at thepopcornwinedown.com. You know, I couldn't go a whole episode without giving us a plug. Pop, pop, pop. Yes, we still need a sound effect. But so what would you rate this movie? The Zack Snyder. This is not the Justice League. This is the Zack Snyder cut of the Justice
A
League.
solid 3.
A solid 3.
It was enjoyable. I enjoyed it. It's very middle of the road. I thought it was really good, and I was able to watch it straight through in one day. So a solid 3, which is a really good ratings for a superhero movie.
Okay. I gave it, now this one, we kind of go a little reverse. I gave it a solid 3.5.
Would that make it a 3.25?
It would. I'm so proud. You're lying.
Oh, please. That's a little inside joke, y'all. The fact that Eddie needs to average out our ratings.
Teach the children in the ways they should go in the way of the world. I'm so proud. Oh, gosh. Oh, I digress. But yes, I give it a 3.5. It was great. It was good. It was better than I thought it was going to be. I must admit that I love long movies because, you're hard pressed to get me into the theater for a 90-minute movie. Anything less than 2 hours, I'm like, nah, I'll catch it on the backside. I guess especially with as much as movies cost nowadays. God, when the theaters reopen, I know they're going to try to jack up the prices. Anyway, but so I did enjoy it. I'm actually happy that we got this cut and that we don't have to live with the 2017 version forever, seared in our memory. So when time comes and children come along or whatever, and they're like, what version should I watch? I'm like, just skip the 2017 version altogether. Go with Zack Snyder's cut. Definitely. It's a little long, but I think he does a better job, obviously, of telling the story. So I was impressed. But I also had to take off some because it was so long, but I get it. So I guess that does it for this week's episode of the Popcorn Wind Down. Please be sure to join us next week when we talk about Ginny in Georgia. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say about Ginny in Georgia. So until then, be sure to check us out on the podcast at Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, Google. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow at all of those places. And daily, get your news fix. Catch up on all the latest in entertainment and pop culture news at thepopcornwinedown.com. Plug, pop, pop, pop. Tammy, I want a sound effect for my birthday.
You gonna create it yourself?
Tammy, I want a sound effect for my birthday.
Pop, 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 pop.
Anyway, until next time, as always, thank you.
I'm Tammy. Bye.